We are joined on this episode by a filmmaker, a director, writer, producer whose feature film, The Stylist, is available now on the Arrow streaming service. She is Jill Gevargizian. Jill, thank you so much for joining us on the program here.
Thank you. You got it. You got my name.
Yay! That is the thing we were most nervous about. We did it. So as Sean said, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm really stoked to talk to you about The Stylist. I really enjoyed the film. So look forward later on where we'll dive into that. But how we always like to start out is by asking, how did you get into film and filmmaking? Was there a particular person, a movie, or a piece of pop culture that, got you hooked?
Well, I fell in love with film, like films in general as a kid, but what really opened my eyes to the idea that making a movie was something I could even think of, like that was even possible, was actually attending my first big horror convention, which I did way too late in life. Like as in my late 20s, I went to Texas Frightmare Weekend and met some independent filmmakers there. Like my first day, actually James Bickert, who made Dear God No and Frankenstein Created Bikers, and meeting those dudes, seeing their film. And then I watched a lot of other independent films that weekend, met more filmmakers. It was really like this moment in my life where I was like, oh my God, real people make movies. This is a thing. I've always been such a fan of films. And when I was really young, made stuff, with like my dad's giant camcorder, because I'm in my late 30s. That's where I am. But after like junior high, I never thought about filmmaking in any serious way. I was really into photography and all kinds of different performance art type stuff. I grew up dancing and playing music. And so it was just like, once I realized real people did this, it wasn't like something completely out of reach for only like people already in Hollywood or with a significant amount of money. And it just opened my eyes to it. And I actually started a screening series here in Kansas City with those films I saw at Texas Frightmare, and then kept needing to find more films. So I had to meet more filmmakers, and through that started going onto their sets, and then met more people, and ended up having my friend Eric Havens, who's a writer. He had a script and he was thinking about directing it, but it really didn't seem like it was his thing, and he decided it wasn't. And I just asked if I could do it, having no idea what that even really entailed, probably, and just like dove in with no formal education or anything. Still figuring it out, I think.
That's awesome. I can definitely relate about having gone to a horror con way later in my life than I should have. I was always interested, but being maybe an introvert, that kind of always intimidated me. And the first time I went, I remember feeling like a sense of belonging. Like, these are my people, and there's other people out there like me who enjoy these things. So I can totally relate to that kind of awakening.
Yeah,
moment.
exactly. That the community, it's so welcoming. And then once you experience it one time, you just can't wait to do it again. It's like that summer camp feeling. And then if you start to go to them regularly, you can really see the same people at different conventions in different cities. And it's such a cool community.
Totally. I guess other than the community, what is it about genre and horror in particular that you found yourself drawn to, maybe at that young age, and then, again, later in life?
I know at first I really just loved the feeling of being scared, which I don't really like. I was legitimately scared of a lot of things, but I wanted to do it, but would be a sissy at the same time about it. Like, and I resent that I said sissy. But like I would want to go play in the woods and explore the woods for fun, or play hide and seek in the dark, and anything that was kind of scary, or like, go try to like explore the sewers before I even knew it was, down there. But I just always loved that feeling. And when I discovered that it existed like in books and movies, I was like hooked. Like like a lot of us read this scary stories to tell in the dark books, which are so disturbing for a little, mostly the illustrations for a kid to be looking at. But I loved that stuff. And yeah, once I discovered scary movies and TV shows, I was hooked.
So you mentioned you were just cutting some hair before this evening, and we learned that you've done that as a real profession, which we'll play into what's coming up later. But was the origin of The Stylist first to short, was it just a merging of your kind of day job career in a genre you love, or was there an impetus to the story itself? Like, did you think to yourself one day you'd like to Sweeney Todd a rather obnoxious client, or was there like a germ of the character study that became the short and later feature?
It really did kind of start as a combination of the two, but I didn't think of it that way. I just one day was like, how is there not already I was thinking about slashers more like The Dentist and Dr. Giggles, all those very campy, like early 90s slashers. I was like, how did the hairstylist version of that not exist in that time period, like already? And it just seems so obvious if you take those kind of movies and mix it with all the torture porn that's been, going on since the early 2000s, that it just is such an obvious thing. And so I just started with just writing ideas about a hairstylist that killed people, like so many different ways to go with that. And it's very messed up. But I decided to go more really, my personal taste in films are really dark character pieces. And I like films about people that are, it's not easy to feel one way about, like it's a conflicting thing. And it just kind of came from the idea of how does this not exist? And then since it doesn't, I was like, I feel like I could really do this in a unique way. Other hairstylists, when they see it, they'll know a hairstylist did it. It was really important to me that with like every decision, it was like, what would a hairstylist do? And when it came to the actual hairstyling, how can we show it as realistic as possible, which is actually very challenging. I learned making the feature, but it just came from there, and then developed her kind of more into this anti-hero type story, which she had lots of influence from Leatherface as far as the wearing of the skin. It really just came from there. Like, how is there not already a slasher? And then we kind of made more of a psychological mix with a slasher.
Right. And the short film that came first, was it always intended as such, or was that more as a proof of concept? Like, did you always have it as a feature-length film in your head?
Well, I wanted it to be a feature kind of when just the basic idea first came to me, but I knew I wanted a lot more experience as a director before I tried to do that. I'd only made one short film when I first writing this idea down, and that was even just the step from that to the STYLIST short was a huge thing. So I knew there's no way I was going to try to. I also had really high expectations for what it would be, and I didn't want to mess it up if I made it too early, not knowing what I was doing. And so it seemed like something we could tell in both forms and it not feel like either it's clearly just a proof of concept, because there are things you make that's specifically all it is. And it can't really exist on its own as much, or the opposite when a short is stretched out, like when it was never meant to be. It was always our intention. I just knew I needed the experience. And then we hoped that it would essentially operate as a proof of concept when we did have the script ready. And then I joked that we have basically a 12-minute trailer, but it's it doesn't exist exactly in the features world. It's just kind of the same thing to me, at least.
So I want to think about like the moment you decided to actually fully commit to making your first feature, from the STYLIST. I know, like, from a lot of people I've talked to, it's such a scary and exhilarating time. Especially when you're trying to raise the money independently. It's not like somebody's like, a studio's giving you, $5 million to go make a movie. Was there a certain moment where you're like, I'm ready, now is the time? And I guess, how did you build your own confidence to get you to that moment?
That's a great question. It was a mix of things. We had been sending the script out to, bigger production companies and financiers, trying to make it, one of the more traditional dream route where, some company comes along and finances the whole thing. But we all kind of know what that world is like. So we had it in that phase for a couple years, and we're also kind of rewriting it during that time. And I just got to the point, multiple times, anytime I would go to a film festival, I would just get so inspired to do it and frustrated that we were just like waiting for this like magical possible opportunity, which I feel like in a really realistic perspective, no one should expect that to happen. That's kind of like a miracle, and like the most fortunate miracle for that. There's millions of us out there with scripts trying to get them made. So I feel like something we all need to keep that in perspective, not get bitter about things not getting financed, because that's just a miracle when it happens. But it was actually like a really personal thing. My mom had a really scary health scare happen where she almost wasn't sure if she was going to make it. And it was a long ordeal, but something that she pulled through. And it was kind of a couple of months into that I had this thing where I was like, just had this moment where I was like, we can't wait any longer. Like, this is another thing reminding me that life is incredibly short, that like literally the next minute you're like, everything could change. And so I actually sat down and broke down the script like a producer. I had never done that, which is insane that I looked back on it. But it's like, how can we actually make this thing with the smallest amount of money? Because everyone's telling me this needs a real budget. This is not the movie to make on your own. I kept getting that advice because it does have like lots of locations, lots of characters. And I reached out to the main two producers on the short film, Robert Stern and Sarah Sharp, who double as like our director of photography and production designer. And I reached out to Najara Townsend, our lead actress, and just asked them three years, like, how do you guys feel about doing a Kickstarter? How little can we make this film for? And then we pieced the rest of it together outside of the Kickstarter. Like, what do you guys think about this crazy idea? I was terrified to ask them all this, but they were all enthusiastic and ready to figure it out. And we realized like this way we can do it completely our way. And it was just like, I think me finally getting like fed up with waiting and just knowing that like life is too short. And then we got like, I feel like another reminder of that we got the film shot really within like 4 weeks of the whole country shutting down because of the pandemic. And so it was just like, we made it just in time and we were inspired to do it because of time. And it just really felt like an amazing thing but it was very hard.
You made the right call, though. But yeah, I can imagine how tough it was to make that decision, how scary, but also like it just feeling right and going for it. So good on you for listening to your gut and, taking the signs from the universe to move forward. So you mentioned the Kickstarter. Obviously, I don't know your total budget for the film. You don't necessarily need to disclose anything about it, but I'm assuming the Kickstarter was a portion of your budget. Did a successful crowdfunding campaign actually help build momentum for other types of financing?
Yeah, that's something I was also scared to start the process because I'm a planner in general. I like to know how I'm going to finish something. I don't like to set out to do something that can't be finished. And so that was challenging for me, knowing we were only going to raise a portion of it and we were going to need more to pay for post-production and lots of other things. But that's advice I kept getting from other filmmakers, that you kind of just have to start your first project, not knowing how you're going to finish it. But it really did help the Kickstarter itself. And I think the fact that was successful, and then we're actually in action making the movie and people seeing that mixed with the financing we got from there, that it brought more attention and even more interest from Kickstarter backers interested in putting more into the film. But it did help us secure other financing for sure.
And beyond just Kickstarter, you'd mentioned the short ended up acting as a proof of concept. Having it be a well-received short, did that also help? Was that part of the campaign to show people the short?
I think it really helped with our Kickstarter. That's kind of, I think it was thanks to how well it did when it played at festivals is why we had kind of any following to be able to do a Kickstarter for it. But what we thought would really help the feature, before we got to Kickstarter stage, was the short, because it did do well at festivals. We won quite a few awards, and then it went on to stream on Shudder for 2 years. It seemed like that's kind of why we ended up doing the Kickstarter, because even with the short, with how well it did, and we had the script and people liked the concept, it still felt like I had this thing working against me because I didn't have a feature under my belt yet. So it kind of felt like this catch-22, like you could make all the shorts in the world and have a super successful one. And it still felt like until I made a feature, these bigger people weren't going to take me seriously or consider financing a film. This is, of course, in my head, but it's part of what I assume. It's kind of like you have to prove yourself, but it's so hard to get that first thing done.
Right. It always goes back to like, well, you need experience. Well, I have the resume or I have the degree, but you need the experience, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And so I know Najara Townsend obviously returned for the lead role as Claire. And it sounds like maybe a DP or production designer were from the short also came back for the feature. Did you have a lot of the same crew? Because the look and feel of the short is remarkably consistent with the feature.
Yeah, we did have a lot of the same people return. It was our DP and production designer. And then a lot of this, because our DP was on here, Robert Stern, a lot of his same team from the short film came onto this. And our editor is the same from the short to the feature. Our composer, our colorist who did post-production color. So it is a lot of very key positions are the same people, which was always my hope that these are people I work with because I love them and I love what they do. They're super talented. And I look at it like they're owed that opportunity first because they worked on the short film. And this was always our goal to get to this place. So we wanted to work with everyone possible from the short that could return.
Did that help? I know sometimes on the first day of set, it's always awkward, and like you don't, but then by the end, everybody feels like a family. Did that kind of help fast forward through that awkward phase where a lot of people already knew each other? So the camaraderie was kind of there from the beginning.
Yeah, it was an interesting mix because there was the core of the short film. And then a lot of those people all those people I mentioned don't live in Kansas City. They are from the short film. They're from Chicago and Wisconsin. So there's a huge chunk of people on the crew that were from Chicago and then a huge chunk from here. And a lot of the people from here are people I've made my last 3 short films with and all my music videos. It was kind of I would have worked with Rob and Sarah, the Chicago team, on a lot of things, but it's hard to do these short projects together, being that far from each other. But it was cool. It's a very heartwarming thing for me because this project was 2 of my film families coming together that didn't know each other yet. So it was a few different groups and then a couple random people from other places. So there were people who knew each other and then a lot who didn't, but somehow this crew bonded in a very insanely awesome way. We have this kind of joke, but on our 4th day, we had a day off. On the 5th day was our first day off. And on that night, we really all just had this dance party and sang songs together all night. And we all talk about lovingly about the day 4 rap party. And I was told by many people in the crew how it's just not normal for people to get along this well ever, or let alone that many after only a couple of days. But we were kind of obsessed with each other. But it was such an exciting thing to work with everyone at once.
Those are the best kind of shoots that are that memorable in that short of time, and for the reasons you stated. But you answered a few of my follow-up questions. So it sounds like you did shoot on location in Kansas City, but it was kind of a Midwestern affair with the entire crew being from different parts of the Midwest. Was it a harder sell to get financing and crew members by doing the film there? Was there ever a push to do it elsewhere, or were you kind of dead set on, no, I want to make it here like I've made everything else?
I was really set on wanting it to be here, even when we were trying to make it in a bigger way, for so many reasons. But I want to bring up opportunities to my hometown. I have a lot of pride about being from here. But I don't know if that was, of course, there's lots of people, with financing talking about tax incentives and rebates in different states. And that always becomes a conversation on bigger projects. But once we knew we were going to do a Kickstarter, we knew we get to decide everything. And we did work with the Kansas City Film Coalition. There's a Kansas City tax rebate, and we actually qualified for it, and that helped us a lot. But for us, it wasn't just about that, which so many films are decided where they're going to shoot because of these incentives. But with some being here and where I'm from, I grew up, and all the connections I have and all the connections the other people on the crew have, that's worth more than money can ever compete with, because we save so much because of people wanting to be involved and helping us out. And because features aren't shot in Kansas City very much, we get tons of, if you're working in film full time, you're mostly doing commercials and maybe reality TV every once in a while, but we don't get narrative film features that often. So people are really excited to be involved and help if they can. So in being here, we got so much we couldn't have gotten it, in a different state where maybe they have a bigger incentive.
Right. So some unexpected boons, which is nice. But did you happen to encounter some giant challenges that maybe some you weren't expecting, some compromises even you were unexpectedly having to make?
I don't know. Once we did decide to do it with this Kickstarter, I did have to go through the script and slim it down as much as I could without losing the story. And in that experience, we did joke around. We found there's like 5,000 bathroom scenes in this freaking movie in a lot of different bathrooms. And there were actually more at one point. And we're like, how many bathrooms could I get out of this script? That is how it was when I was doing it at one point. But when it came down to shooting, we shot in the winter in Kansas City, which is something we had to basically be aware that our weather's insane and it could snow one day and then be sunny the next and then snow 5 days later. And it's just all over the place. So we knew we were going to face challenges with weather. And if you establish it's not snowing outside and then it is 5 days later and you might be shooting a scene that happened at the same time. We dealt with a lot of that. We actually had people moving snow out of exterior shots for at least a few days. And then actually the Kansas City Chiefs became a problem because it was a great problem. We won the Super Bowl last year, in case anyone didn't know. And that we were shooting downtown in Kansas City at a nightclub on the route where the Super Bowl parade went down. But we were planning this weeks ahead, of course. And so we didn't know, are they going to be in the Super Bowl? If they win, this would happen. It was so many ifs, but we had to plan around them, which as a fan, it made me feel very like we're ruining, this is jinxing it. This is bad luck. But it became a thing. And we actually ended up filming the night before the parade and it was still possible, but it was insane and exciting.
Right. What a weirdly good problem to have. If only the party could have been shot this year. Sorry.
I know.
Sore subject for the Kansas City Chiefs fan. No, you'd mentioned earlier that you did in the nick of time got the principal photography was finished just before the pandemic really hit. So I imagine the shutdown caused different challenges, maybe not so much in post, but like, did you happen to miss out on some in-person festivals? Did some get axed amidst the shutdown? Like, I'm sure it changed the festival run a little bit. Yeah,
it really changed it, from what I was expecting and what we always assume will happen. Since this stuff started to shut down in, middle of March last year, I started to, I feel like I need to prepare myself emotionally for things. I'm not good with like last minute changes or stuff. So I started to already think like, okay, this is serious. This might mean all festivals this year are not happening because this is when South by Southwest was canceled, like only 2 days before it happened. And all the other festivals that fall or spring were canceling, and we were aiming at like a fall premiere. And I was like, we need to just prepare ourselves that this might not happen at all. Who knows? The festivals don't know what's going to happen. At that point, we were submitting to festivals and they didn't know how they would happen or if. And so it was such an interesting thing because we were like, do you wait to release the movie? But we ended up realizing I think that would have been insane because you'd still be waiting. But I just looked at it like, well, what are we waiting with kind of how this all started? What are we waiting for? This is, I feel like, going to be a slow evolution to getting back to something resembling what normal used to be. So what would we be waiting for? But it was a sad thing to know that we wouldn't be attending festivals because I really took that part of the process seriously with my short films. That's, I think, why they would do well when they did. And it's how I met so many people I've worked with attending those things and then getting into more festivals thanks to those. And I would have loved to attend them. I got to go to a couple in October that were at drive-ins, but to watch the film with a crowd and hear reactions in real time. So that's when you really get to learn about what you did. I feel like then you get to know, did that movement work? Did people laugh? Did they make a sound? Did they do anything? So that part was wildly different, but post-production was all in this pandemic, which is something we would do almost in that way anyway, because a lot of it's long distance, but it did make things challenging. Like we needed to get together to finish certain things like the color and the sound. You need to hear that in the room. So it did present challenges for sure.
It's so rough. Like I'm very glad that you had the opportunity to make the film right before everything shut down, but it also, my sympathies go out to you for, finally getting your feature film made and then having it kind of have to premiere in a year without real festivals. It's so disappointing, but hopefully the next one you make, you'll get to sit in that crowded theater and hear everybody's reactions.
Right, and based on this movie, it would have been talked about in incredibly positive light. And I think either way, the folks who see this are going to be excited for what's next for you, because as Becky will probably allude to here, like just high marks for the direction, the color palette, so many things about this film we really, really liked.
Well, and there was still there's a huge silver lining to how the festivals happened this year, because even though they were virtual, we couldn't be there, but then so many more people could access them, from anywhere, versus just the people in Austin for Fantastic Fest or whatever it may be. Even I attended festivals and screenings. There's no way I could have if it wasn't virtual. So it was cool in that way. And there was still a great response, and you could tell still that community happening on social media and thanks to Twitter. And it was still cool to see everyone's reactions, but yeah, totally different experience.
For sure. And if I were there at a festival and I saw the film, I wanted to ask you a couple questions. I maybe would have gone up to you and we could have had a beer and talked about the movie. But one thing I noticed about The Stylist is that it would blow any Bechdel test out of the water. So almost all the dialogue is between women. And there's really only one male character that I can think of who has any significant dialogue. But we're so used to seeing the opposite in movies. Was this something intentional as you were working on the script, or did it just kind of manifest itself that way organically, just due to the nature of working at a hair salon?
Yeah, it honestly was organic. And it isn't even totally because of a salon. I guess it was mostly because I feel like that's just the kind of people that I just never imagined that Claire killed men, and spoiler alert, doesn't matter. But I never imagined that was anything she focused on or barely. It's just, she's trying to really escape herself. And I think she just wants to always escape into other women's minds. But actually when I did this first breakdown of the script of the characters and locations and saw it all listed out, I was like, oh my God, that's when I realized there's no men in the film, and there's not really a male lead. And I thought it was exciting because it just was the story called for it. And like you said, it's not common, but then it also just seemed to magically happen that even our extras, our background talent was mostly female, which they say the statistics on that is still crazy off, that it's still way more men, even in backgrounds of scenes, than women, which who knows why that would happen. But it just kind of naturally felt that way. And even in hindsight, someone pointed this out to me. It's nothing we intended, but that the men are kind of just in the outskirts of scenes and the corners. And I just think that just happened because that's just what Claire's life is like, and what she's focused on. But it was really exciting to do that. And then to realize, well, if we have so many different women characters, how can we, represent all different types of people? And because I didn't want it to be this is a girl movie. This isn't really about gender for me. It's just about different people, and it just naturally is mostly women. But yeah, we're really excited about it in hindsight and proud of it, but it was not intentional. I swear I'm not a man hater.
No, and that's what I think I liked about it, is that it wasn't necessarily something that was written, out this is a film for women, only for women, and we only have women in this movie. It sounded like it was very natural from the script, and it's just kind of refreshing, I guess, to see a movie that's not necessarily calling it out that way, but it just adds more to the balance of films we see in our day-to-day, because the majority of films we consume are still at least 70% of the dialogue goes to men for the most part. So it was just nice to see that. Another aspect that I really loved was there's an incredible amount of empathy that you kind of infuse into the two leads. Even though sometimes their motivations are completely in opposition from each other, I'm curious, like, did you face any challenges with people wanting to play up more of the horror elements or the slasher elements at the expense of kind of the nuanced characters that you were making? Like I could see someone saying, oh, let's like make Claire less empathetic, or, make her more villainous, or make Bria Grant's character, Olivia, more antagonistic towards Claire to really amp up the tension. But I loved personally how it was so, like, these people felt very real, and I could empathize with both of them. So I'm kind of curious if you got any struggles in that process of people trying to kind of change those elements of it.
We had a little bit in when we were sending it out to a lot of companies, and actually a very different stage of the script than the final that we ended up shooting. But we were getting notes, that we should, which I feel like this is like the most general note that everyone gets. Like it needs to be more horror and more scary, like more kills, more everything. And at one point we actually did take that note. An early version of the script was way less horror than it is now. So there were some of that we actually listened to, and because admittedly the script wasn't there, we knew it wasn't there yet. We had I knew the beginning and the ending, like there's no question, but there was the middle is always the hardest part of writing anything, I think. And that's when we actually brought in another writer, Eric Stolz, who did a fresh pass on the script that was a significant change. But really, like after that version of the script, we only shared with one big company. And when they passed on it, we stopped sending it out. And then it was only a few months later that I was like, we're going to make this the Kickstarter, and then we have no one to answer to. None of the producers on this project, they all understood that this is a character piece and understood our intention from the start. So no one pushed for it to be anything than what we were trying to do, which I think is why I always trusted this team. They understood the vision completely, and I could completely let them do their thing because I know they understand the whole point of it. But yeah, it wasn't. We were lucky to do it on our own because I do know what that process is like when you're working with a lot of different production companies. And so everyone has a say, and you'll get notes on the script from 5 different groups of people. And that can be not fun. I've done that on other projects for sure.
Sometimes even be conflicting notes. You're like, wait, more or less?
Yeah.
This person said this, but no, I guess, kudos to having that freedom by doing it yourself, that you could make the movie you wanted. So there's certainly some kind of satisfaction in that.
Definitely, because I've gotten the notes you're talking about where it's like the same script. You address these notes, you send it back, and then there's new notes that are had no connection to the previous, and nothing else changed. Like you didn't have this note before. Now you suddenly have this extremely significant change you're interested in. No.
A never-ending cycle of notes.
Right? You wonder sometimes if they are asking to see how much they'll get from you, so they give you the real note the next time. You're like, well, she gave us that inch. We want this mile. Please give it to us. The MPAA is very guilty of that, I think, sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
This sex scene's too much, and you send it back and you shave a millisecond off of it. All right, it's fine now. They don't know the difference. They just assume you did something.
Let's transition to something way more fun than talking about MPAA and video notes.
I thought you were going to talk about the stylist. I'm like, she might like talking about it, even though she's not press for it.
No, the stylist is fun to talk about.
No, for sure. We are fans, and again, we will promote it as much as we can. Please, guys, there's free trials of it. Check out Arrow. It's Arrow like a bow and arrow. It's arrow-player.com is what you'll find if you Google Arrow streaming service. They do have free trials, and it's worth poking around. And I don't know if we mentioned this yet on the show, but there's also some cool features, including an introduction by Jill herself for the movie. So it's worth checking out, not only just for the film, but some of the extras around it. Plus, the streaming service in general is a good thing to at least spend a week on and possibly renew.
Hell yeah.
But Becky, you were saying.
Oh, yes. So we'll move into what a lot of people think is the most fun part, is the rapid fire 15.
Normally torture for the guests. The listeners seem to enjoy this part the most.
Well, people get weirdly nervous about it. Like they do their formal interview and are great and are perfectly eloquent. Then they suddenly get nervous about answering questions that are supposed to be really fun and kind of frivolous. So it's, 15 questions just about, you and your tastes, and just try not to think too hard about it.
Yeah, we sort of tailor them to what we know about you and what we think we've learned about you. So Becky, you can start us off. Don't think too hard about it. First thing that comes to mind. There's no score or anything.
What movie do you think you've seen the most in your life?
Oh man. First one that comes to mind is Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet.
Ooh.
Still one of the better soundtracks of our lifetimes. I really
Yeah, one of the best soundtracks ever. I saw the movie in the theater 10 times in a row the year it came out. And 6 of those at least were like every single day of my like winter break of 7th grade with my best friend. Oh, that movie's like influenced everything I've done, and artistically just in normal life. So yeah.
Awesome.
What would be your favorite horror movie franchise?
Oh man, franchise. That's where you get me.
Yeah, it gets everyone. It got me too.
A full franchise. Okay, the Final Destination franchise.
Nice. We've had that answer a few times, and it's we always say we don't disagree because they have a better batting average than most.
Yeah, because it's like I love a lot of originals of franchises and random ones, but that franchise is so fun. I love it.
Yeah, it's consistently fun. What is your favorite Universal monster movie?
The Bride of Frankenstein.
Nice.
And I love the classics because to me, they're more like tragedies than they are scary.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Frankenstein for the very reason, the tragic monster. But yeah, Bride of Frankenstein's the answer. Do you have a favorite horror movie subgenre?
That's hard. Growing up, I don't know if it still is. It used to be slashers growing up. Now I don't even know what I would say. Shit. I need a list of all the subgenres that exist.
Yeah, body horror, psychological horror.
Probably psychological horror. That makes sense.
What movie has made you cry the most?
Oh man.
I know you like sad movies.
I love sad movies. Maybe The Land Before Time, because I watched it all the time as a little girl because I wanted to cry.
When his mom
I sound so fucked up.
Oh my gosh. So sad.
That movie does make me very sad.
But I have to shout out most recently, Moonlight rocked my world, and it's like one of my favorite movies now.
Yeah. What is your favorite Brian De Palma film?
I have to admit, there's still some I haven't seen. Shit. Oh my God, that's too hard. He's made so many movies. I feel like it's lame to say Carrie, but that's the one I first want to say, I guess. It's not a lame movie. It's just a bigger one. I want to sound like super cool and like underground and say a more rare title.
like several directors, there's a lot of correct answers to that question. There's no wrong answer necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we throw in the Spielberg one, everyone says the same thing. They're like, I want to pick something that nobody watches, but usually it's like Jurassic Park or Jaws. Like 90% of the time, it's one of those two.
Or E.T. Come on, people.
Yeah, that one too. Yeah.
Yep. Yes. What is the best Texas Chainsaw sequel / reboot / remake? So everything besides the original, which one is best?
Oh my God. That is a tough question. So I could answer for many reasons. I don't know if my favorite one, and it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but I really like the Texas Chainsaw, The Beginning. So the prequel to the remake with Jessica Biel, it's like, that's what, like you're saying, there's so many, it's like the prequel to which one? Like,
yes.
Dear God, it's insane.
It wouldn't be a horror franchise without a convoluted timeline.
No, at least that one's the most disconnected. It didn't get franchised to death right away. So I feel different about it than I do the others. Like, they didn't make like 10 in 10 years.
Yeah.
Is there an existing IP that you would like to direct an adaptation of, or a sequel or remake of, or like just say an existing universe maybe you'd like to play in?
I don't, not really off the top of my head. I have joked about that it would be fun to make a Dr. Eagles 2, but pardon me, I do not remember. Was it Larry Drake, the actor who passed away that plays him? I rewatched Dr. Eagles after he passed away, and I was like, God, this movie's so fun. How did it never get get franchised? But I don't know that you'd want to do it without him. He is Dr. Giggles.
Right.
Yeah. And so related to this, if you had do you have a personal dream project in mind, like an original idea, a biopic, or like a person you want to work with, or a genre you want to tackle?
Yeah, I want to do something like totally out of the horror space that's more of a like, I don't even know what the subgenre, what they call this kind of stuff, but something like in line with stuff like Florida Project and Moonlight that has this like raw drama. I really just love really emotional films, which is why I fell in love with sad movies, and I like scary movies. I think are emotional too. I really want to work in a lot of different genres, but I want to make something really, really raw and dramatic, like those kind of films.
Do you have a favorite theater or movie going experience? Is there like a memorable screening or premiere that sticks out in your mind?
So many, like my 10 times I saw Romeo and Juliet. As a kid, going to the movie theater was like, that was what I did on the weekend. I think a lot of us, but I don't even know. There's so many exciting screenings I've been to, especially since I've been going to film festivals. What's freaking ridiculous. I'm saying I've been to all these film festivals. What's coming to mind is like seeing Anaconda, which would have been the same fucking year as Romeo and Juliet. Like, what am I thinking about? But Anaconda is a really special place in my heart. And I think I did see it twice in the theater that year.
John Voight's accent is an all-timer. Like, what is that?
Yeah, no one knows what it is. And everything he says is freaking gold. It's so funny.
I need to rewatch that movie. Do a double feature with Lake Placid or something.
Yes.
What are your dogs' names and how did you come up with their names?
Pepper is my black chihuahua that's in The Stylist, and that's her name in the movie as well. I don't even know why I named her Pepper. I wish I had a great reason. But then I got Tina, another Chihuahua, who I feel like that name is very well describes her personality. But this is a sad, darkly funny way her name came about. She was found, which I think she just ran away from a house nearby, but she was found like as a puppy. She was found in a Walmart parking lot and taken to a vet where a client of mine worked, and she knew I was looking for another Chihuahua. So she tells me they have this dog and that, it had been a while, so no one had come to find. I just assumed someone had puppies and a few of them, like, it ran away. She did. But they named her, because my friend who was there, the client, she's also has a very dark sense of humor. So they named her Walita Martina after Walmart. And so that's her full name still. And I just shortened it down to Tina.
I love that name.
It's ridiculous.
Walita Martina.
I'm surprised she's not barking and interrupting every once in a while.
Oh, I don't know if you've heard I adopted a puppy recently and she has been barking on and off. I've been trying to mute in between.
That's fine. It's real life. No worries.
Yes.
So, Jill, Becky and I show up in Kansas City for a night, or some listener does, and you're going to show them a night on the town. Where are you taking them to dinner, and what's like the sights they would see? Like, how do you treat a guest with one night in Kansas City?
Oh man, this is a good one. Back in the old days when we could go out and do things and be social.
Yeah, we're pretending that's the case.
Yeah.
I would we're really known, and this starts debates because of parts of the country, but Kansas City barbecue is a big thing here. And I don't even freaking eat meat, but I would normally take a friend to one of the barbecue restaurants, and probably specifically Q39. And then I would take them on this thing I've dubbed the Kansas City Lady Double Feature, which is first going to the Green Lady Lounge, which is a jazz club that is like the most seedy, like gothic feeling in there. It's the coolest place. I want to shoot in there so bad. But we are also known, we have serious jazz history here in Kansas City. And then I'm a huge strip club fan. Then we would go to the Shady Lady Lounge, which is not far away. Assuming I have someone that is down with that plan. That's the ultimate Kansas City night.
Shady Lady. Awesome. That is a great name.
It's such a great name.
Now coming up to the stage. Well,
I miss the Shady Lady. It's been a while.
I guess, they probably suffered. They probably suffered the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, they've been doing like drive-through.
I know. I want one of those around here. What the hell?
Get your Shady Lady to go. So what is the most annoying question you get about your tattoos? And is it this question?
No. I feel like people have been asking me about them in a long time. I don't know. I guess just.
Well, if they don't annoy you, you could tell us, is there a particular one with a great story or a personal favorite of yours?
That's hard. I have so many favorites, but I have one that people do notice a lot, which is funny because it's tiny, but I've got this tiny Godzilla outline on my wrist. And it was actually a Fantastic Fest tattoo where they, every year they do this. They have artists design a sheet of tattoos, a flash that connects to that year's programming, and people can get the tattoo if they win this lottery, or if you stand in line all night like I did, and maybe you'll get in. But it's a cool one because it just makes me think of like, that's the short film, the STYLIST short film played there. It's the first time I had anything play at that festival. And there's a lot of other people that have the same one since it was one of 10 you could get that year. And it's just a cool like memory, which I heard someone describe tattoos this way a long time ago. Like it's like a scrapbook on your body. So like none of them, even if they might be silly after 10 years, they still have a lot of meaning, whether you would get that still today, maybe not, but none of them feel like, oh man, can I cut that off my arm, we
have a couple friends who've gotten them several years in a row with Fantastic Fest, just making his own travel band around his arm of them. So what would Jill's walk-up music be? Like if you're coming out for your TED Talk or you're coming out to promote the STYLIST on stage, or maybe you're a fighter or a ball player, what's the walkout music you're using?
Well, it would definitely be rap music. What the song would be would change depending on when it was. But right now I would say High Top Versace by 2 Chainz is one of my hype songs. In fact, I actually make playlists, and there's certain songs that stay on it and they become like good luck. I'm superstitious, but not really. I don't know. There's like, I have a playlist on my phone called the STYLIST Hype Playlist. I listen to that till I get in director mode when I would like drive to set. Nice. So it is like that.
I have playlists for certain scripts I work on that have like the tone or the lyrics connect with me for the story I'm writing. And then I will listen to them as I write.
Yeah.
All right. This is the last question in the rapid fire 15. So you're almost cleared the way. What is one thing you haven't been able to do since the quarantining and social distancing that you're dying to do? Maybe it's go to a strip club at the Shady Lady. But what's the first thing you're going to do once all the restrictions are up and the pandemic is behind us? Like what's that thing that you're just dying to get out and do?
Well, I would love to go to the strip club, but I'd also love to just go out and dance in general. I love dancing and I miss being able to do that. Even though I was driving around last weekend and noticing like so many bars are full of people. And I'm just like, what is going on? So people do think it's already okay to do these things. So I've learned.
Yes, unfortunately, let's just hope they don't delay it for the rest of us.
Yeah.
But hope does feel like it's on the horizon. Let's just hope people can make it through the next few months so that we don't kind of spiral out of control again.
I know. I hope so. Oh my gosh. I want to go back to film festivals. That's probably the other main thing.
Yeah. Go see a movie, go to a film festival, travel, all those things.
Well, that's the end of the Rapid Fire 15. You did a wonderful job, and I will forever be saying Juanita Martina.
Yes.
Off topic, but sort of based on tattoos and other things. Do you mind? Are we able to ask you about the origin of 6 and some of your handles? Is there a story behind that?
Yeah. 6 itself has just been my favorite number since I was a little kid. I don't exactly understand where I created that in my mind or why. My birthday is February 6th. So I wonder if I just decided that was my favorite number because of my birthday.
I don't X's, remember. You were like a Motley Crue fan or something.
I am, but that developed it was this weird process of that was my favorite number. And then in high school, I was reading The Dirt, the book about Motley Crue. And really, I got to that book because I read Marilyn Manson's book. The same author that wrote that also wrote The Dirt. He wrote a lot of books with, famous people telling their stories, but he was the actual writer. And so I, of course, knew Motley Crue and their hits and grew up under knowing who they were, but I wasn't a super fan. And through the book became really fascinated and super fanatic about them and Nikki Sixx's story, because I didn't know that like he was kind of the leader of the band, like he formed them. It was all like his vision, and I was really inspired by like that idea that like from the outside, people look at a band like that and they're like super punk rock and don't give a fuck about anything. But actually he put that vision together like you would a boy band. Like it was very planned out, everything about it, and very smart. Like there's people look down on that, but that's like clearly nothing to look down on, like as if it makes you less of an artist because you had a total vision for something like that, or that you use your image as part of your art. So it was just like, because his name was Sixx, it just all these things I'm very weird about, connections and things feeling like they're supposed to be. And I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be obsessed with him. His name is Sixx. And so I just stole his name for a while and it became a whole thing.
This is also why she's a big Blossom fan.
Yes.
So speaking of that, Shonda mentioned it's part of your handle. Where can people find you online if they want to follow your career and learn more about, the Stylist and keep up to date on other releases?
Yeah. At Jill Sixx with the 2 X's on like all social media. And then please also follow at the Stylist Film on all the places as well. And then I've got a website, sixtape.com.
Nice.
Very nice. All right, Jill, we thank you again for the time and again, all the candid answers. And please, again, folks, check out The Stylist on Arrow's streaming platform right now. You can find that by just searching Arrow streaming service. It'll be arrow-player.com. It's wonderful. I believe the short is still on either Vimeo and or Shudder. You can watch that as well. If she wants you to, she might want you to just skip right to the feature.
Thank you. Yeah. On Arrow, actually, the short is also on Arrow along with all kinds of behind the scenes making of. So yeah, please check it out.
Oh, that's right. And your intro as well. Yes.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
No, certainly.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I really love The Stylist, and I loved hearing the story behind it and some of your thinking about, pulling your vision together.
Indeed.
All right. Stay safe out there so we can all one day go to Kansas City and the Shady Lady again.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Jill. Take care.
Heck yes. Thank you so much, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.